dead franchises have, sadly, become a normal occurrence today. Right, I know. Starting a review on a note like this doesn't really sound promising, but you gotta hear me out. I have a theory. The longer a franchise is dormant, the chances that when it does come back eventually, if at all, is that there's a chance that it turns out great, because developers have been waiting for that moment to release the game. And this statement is true for today's edition of the Storm Experience, Metroid Dread. I'm going to be frank right now, this is my first time playing a Metroidvania, not including Spider-Man Web of Shadows for the DS. I have no clue what that game actually was, but yeah. Anyway, back to Metroid. This was a franchise that I wanted to try for quite a while, but since there weren't any new games on newer hardware, not including Federation's Forces, it was quite hard to actually start with the franchise. But last year, Metroid Dread dropped, and I was, pretty excited for it, and let me tell you what. I'll just tell you that, yeah. The game received worldwide success, winning Best Action Game at the Game Awards actually, and when I heard the orchestral version of the theme of Samus Aran, I went and got this game. So, here we are. Let's dive right into my experience with Metroid Dread.
3, 2, 1.
Typically, when a game receives a sequel, or a movie, or a book, you'd have to have digested its predecessor before getting into the new one. Since this is the 5th 2D Metroid game, do you need to have played the previous 4 Metroids before diving in? In short, no. No you don't. Dread starts off with a quick monologue from Samus, it's quick compared to the length of the game, who explains what's going on and does some explaining about the organisms on the planet and such. Basically, in short, the game and its story is self-contained, but open enough to encourage you to go out and play the previous titles. As first impressions, I dig it. The game looks great, with the first area being vibrant but off-putting since you don't know what's next to come. Even better than this is the level design. Dread does a fantastic job of showing you the basic Metroidvania tropes by going into one area, and then you'll quickly see that you'll be unable to go back until much later, and showing you stuff that is just out of reach until you get and show that you'll get there somewhere down the line. Really, I was kind of put off when I read about how Metroidvania game design works and how easy it is to get lost in games like these, but once I got to play it, I didn't really notice it for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, I'll talk about that later. But yeah, Samus looks cool, the controls are smooth, the world is exciting to explore, and overall the design of the level just keeps pushing you forward. Not really pushing, but rather nudging you onwards. And as you progress through the so-called tutorial area, we have our first encounter with an EMMI, the invincible hunter robots that hunt you down in their specific areas. This encounter was, terrifying, because not only are they fast and invincible, but half the time you don't know where to go with, so it always keeps you engaged and on the ready. Metroid Dread's introduction is a great place, in my opinion, where newcomers to the genre should start out, as it lays out its core concepts and builds upon it in a friendly manner, before going all Metroid on you. Since Metroidvanias tend to be more gameplay focused or anything else from what I know, this section of the video will be the most substantial one, the gameplay section. So I'll start by saying that the controls in Metroid Dread are really, really fluid. There are so many different power-ups and upgrades that by the end of the game you'll be using every button you have to just get past the whatever enemies in your way or whatever challenge you face. The upgrades you get are simple to pull off but require mastery to get to the more difficult areas, and upgrades, and of course the final boss. For instance, you get a speed boost and you must maneuver your way through tight gaps and then use it whilst maintaining the speed, and that is something that is quite hard to pull off, let me tell you that. These small puzzle sections help you master the abilities and progress with the game. In general, it feels great to play the game, and my only issue is that I'm constantly shaking and hoping that my Joy-Cons won't end up starting to drift. Since we're still on the topic of controls, I've got to mention some other stuff. For one, we have a new move, which is a parry move. It was technically in the Metroid, I don't remember the remake, what it was called, Metroid Samus Returns, I think it was. But yeah, no, this parry, if timed correctly, can really make everything so much easier and fun. But it can be a bit overpowered if you do end up mastering it. With the EMMI robots, not so much. The parry window against these robots is so inconsistent and small that you need some S-tier level reaction time and of course luck. But this contrast between the normal enemies and the EMMIs is fair and just shows you how widespread the challenge between the enemies is. So some are easy to take out, whilst others require a lot of skill, which you will get better at whilst playing. Really, it's just so much fun to use all your different power-ups against a wide range of enemies, like using your power bombs or your charged missiles. But speaking of power-ups and different scenarios, the EMMI robots, once again. The EMMI robots aren't just one-dimensional at all. They're not just these big invincible things, and you know, this might be a spoiler, but they have different power-ups. Like, that caught me off guard. Like, what they can do, I won't say, but just so you know that whenever you think that you've got them covered, they'll just surprise you and find up some new Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection style way of taking you out. I'm just saying that the challenge is always there, and it always keeps you on your toes. Enemies are difficult, and the boss fights as well, especially the final boss fight. But finish the game, there were only a couple of notable boss fights, with 2 of them actually being repeated throughout the game. Yes, there are some really good bosses here, but there are multiple mini or main, I don't know how you want to classify those boss fights, but they aren't even reskin boss fights. They're just the same, the same copy-pasted boss fight throughout the whole game. And that is my biggest gripe in terms of gameplay, and that is the repetitive nature of some of these bosses. Fortunately, the hype and very well designed other bosses make up for those repetitive ones. Now, I know you Metroidvania fans must be wondering if a newcomer to the genre has encountered the fabled Metroid moment. This is a phenomenon that I've heard is present in many games in this genre, and it is when you reach a certain story point and you are stuck and have no clue what to do, which results to you either searching up a guide, you use every single power-up you have in ways that the game designers didn't even think that could happen and nothing happens, or simply, and most commonly I think is what happens, you put the game down and you call it bad game design. You know which room I'm talking about, but yeah, well, Metroid Dread does have its fair share of Metroid moments, but you don't really realize it, and the main way they designed to get through this is through a subtle yet impactful way, through butterflies. Yes, you heard me right, butterflies. If you think you're lost, these butterflies show up when you're about to get lost and stand in front of the door where you should be heading to. This is a subtle way to get the player in the right direction, as all they do is guide you into the right room, and you must find out what you have to do in that room on your own. This is a really nice way to get you in the right direction. The game doesn't leave you for dead, but it isn't really helping you out either. Or, I mean, that is good game design. Yeah, that's all I can say. All I can say all together, I just repeated myself there. All I can say, once again, that Dread has a phenomenal gameplay loop that is fun to play and explore, and challenging enough to always keep you on edge. I mean, do I really need to dissect the atmosphere of a game whose title literally has the word dread in it? But yeah, Metroid's general atmosphere is very well crafted. There are many gorgeous areas for you to explore and find secrets and find your way to your ship. And these are areas that range from beautiful forest-like areas all the way to water levels that are a pain to move through until you get some of the better upgrades. The areas are so vast and huge even so, getting lost can happen, but not so often. Each area is filled with different landscapes, which are all gorgeous to look at, like I just said, and considering that this is the Nintendo Switch's hardware we're talking about, this is very impressive. It's not that they try to make the art direction fit to the system, but rather they're getting their full mileage out of the system. There are some loading screens that do take time, but because the loading screens look cool and great, I didn't mind them in the end. Also, the cutscenes that are in the game have some really sick cutscene to gameplay transitions, and they're just wild and really cool to look at. But back to environment and areas, there are many enemies that are exclusive to each zone, like these water squid things to this flying whale thing. Yeah, those are pretty vague descriptions, but you'll see it if you know what I'm talking about, or when you get there. But one thing that isn't exclusive to each zone are the EMMIs and their respective zones within each zone. Although the EMMI robots are all different with their own gimmicks, their zones really aren't. The design of these EMMI zones are all super similar, and because you learn the map layout by experience and by playing the game, you can get a bit frustrated when the zone doesn't have that exact exit that you thought it had, or the room you needed to go to. Of course, the map does help with this, but I don't really want to bring up the map every other second to see where I'm going, because I want to maneuver with what I've learned by muscle memory, you know? But in the end, these industrial-like areas are quite repetitive and samey, but also the smaller other industrial areas that you see are sprinkled in each zone, they also feel the same, and makes it just feel that bit more repetitive and blander. Still on the topic of the EMMI robots, the feeling they strike in you is amazing. Pure dread, just like the title says. Once you enter one of their zones, you know stuff's about to go down. When you hear the faint beeps and the EMMI zone song starts playing, you get that pure sense of loss and weakness. And this is where Dread's sound team came in good. Sound design here is great, fantastic even. The EMMIs make these weird noises which go into alert mode when you're spotted, the wide range of creatures all make sounds native to them, and your interactions with the environment all make the right appropriate sounds. As for music, there isn't much of it actually, but it is there, like subtly. Either there to comfort you when you enter a save room, a la Resident Evil style, or keeping you guessing which way to go when you where do you have to go when you get to Itorash. Of course, my favorite track in the game is the theme of Samus Aran, and it is such an epic track. You only hear it a couple of times throughout the game, but I love it. I really do. It's so epic and motivating. So yeah, Metroid Dread has a very strong and consistent atmosphere, albeit that some areas do blend in and overlap with each other. Going into this, I didn't really expect much from the story. I like myself some good narrative games, and I was expecting the narrative to take a backseat here, but it actually didn't. So first, I'll touch upon the story before going into the characters. Apart from the opening monologue, there is no clear flashing yellow sign saying enter here for the next story segment and cues a story cutscene. To be fair, there are only 2 real major story related cutscenes in the game, however the rest of the story is told through your interactions with the world. As Samus gets her upgrades and levels up again, you do learn more about the story, and your objective is always clear as day: get to the ship and save the planet. I don't know how to explain. Like I said with the flashing sign, the game isn't telling you that you are progressing the story, rather the game is showing you how the story is unfolding as you get better and progress. Another aspect of progressing the story is Adam, the AI that helps you with mission reporting, and just says the mission and the next objective. Again, it's not all out in your face, but it's there, briefing you, and you learn in progress. And this small briefing acts as a briefer for yourself. Get that? Breathing briefer? Yeah, no, that bad joke, rhyme. No, never mind. Where you can relax from the game and take in what you've done so far. Now, for characters. Samus says, I'd say less than 100 words once the game starts. But really, her actions speak more than words ever would. Not only does she look cool, when she blasts through hordes of enemies, sucks out the life of robots, and rips and tears through them all, she's just so cool. I love her. Like, this is how you design a video game character, without putting an emphasis on their dialogue, but rather tell the story through their actions and how they act. As for the other characters, I can't really go into detail on them because, well, it's best you meet them for yourselves, but I can say with great confidence that the main antagonist of the game is really cool. Nothing more, nothing less, just really, really cool. Now for the content of the story, like I said, it takes a backseat. Yes, the game is very gameplay focused, and that is perfectly fine. A game doesn't need the 2 to be top notch to be good. It's like if you had a Metroidvania like power-ups in The Last of Us, it wouldn't help the game as the story is already more than enough. But the story is in the background, and since the story isn't as prevalent, that means that there really isn't a need for that many characters. I just said that the characters here are great, but there aren't many, so that might be a problem for some. When the story and characters want to show themselves, you are taken aback, and you sit back and enjoy the story because they know when they want to put into high gear, and there was a moment that took me completely off guard in a good way. Overall, characters are amazing, and since the game isn't really story reliant, that when the narrative comes into play, you feel that it comes at the right time, and it's very enjoyable. Once you do complete the game, you are rewarded with a piece of artwork for your efforts. With a total of 7 pieces of artwork, the game encourages you to play it all again and to unlock what is left. There are also different artworks for finding all the items, 100%ing the numerous areas there. I have unlocked a total of 1 piece of artwork. 1 piece of artwork, and it's cool, and it makes me want to go right back in to unlock the rest of them because they're just great art. Along with that, you unlock a hard mode, which is tougher. I mean, it's hard mode, of course it will be. So overall, the replay value of this game is through the roof, because mastering the game and trying to find faster ways to beat the game reward you, and overall, although the game is about 10 hours long, you'll be playing Dread for many, many more hours after your first playthrough. Metroid Dread, for me, is a game that you will love if you love video games, regardless of what your favorite genre is. Due to its clear and focused approach to deliver a fantastic gameplay experience, that's all you really have to focus on. You could play the game 1 week, come back a month later, and since the story here is not a driving factor, You don't need to watch a story recap or something, you just dive in and have a good time. The feeling I had when playing Dread was a feeling that was very unique. I truly had so much fun playing this. And although this game is not the most innovative game in the Metroidvania genre out there, but it perfects what has been done before it, and I cannot understate how good of a game Metroid Dread is. If you want a game where you can feel satisfied pulling off sick parries and blasting enemies, and overall just have a good time, Metroid Dread is definitely it, and I recommend that if you get into Metroidvanias, you should start here and branch out from this game. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video and another episode of the Storm Experience. Metroid Dread was really a really good game that I'll probably be playing a lot throughout this year, but what are you guys' thoughts on Dread? Will you get it? Have you got it? What do you think about it as a whole? Comment your takes down below, and any support is appreciated. And yeah, that's all from me. I recently picked up Ori and the Blind Forest, but right now I'm trying to finish some other stuff that I've got in the backlog, and some other more video ideas that I think you guys will like, and I'm gonna write them out. So yeah, I'll leave you there. Take care, ciao, and Storm out.